I don't know if he ever specified why, except saying that she did this to him. I just know that she said, like, I'm sorry, I was drunk. I didn't mean to hurt you. He's like, see what you've done to me. You kind of like you're making me do this. Like, this is what I've become, type of, because of you. And she was asking, what did I do, or sorry. And he said it's too late. Right after that, I heard a lot of gushing blood, gurgling almost, and she started choking, like a wet cough, and exhaled, and it was a very deep exhale, and I, for myself, knew that she was dead at that point. I was laying there after I figured she died, waiting to die.
When it comes to the topic of sexual assault, it's an extremely sensitive subject to process, especially for the victims. These incidents can vary in account, such as the amount of people involved, time frame it happened, severity in which the act was carried out, and even the gender of the offender or survivor. Regardless of these factors, what is universally understood is that people who have been victimized at this level often continue to carry these traumatic scars, leaving a lasting effect in their lives and relationships, especially for those, such as the perpetrator in today's episode, who feel that their version of events were discredited and that their offender was never held accountable. The events leading up to this horrendous crime sheds light on how flirting, inappropriate behavior, and outright assault can differ in interpretation depending on the individual, and make you cautious about your interactions with other people moving forward, because you never know when someone's perceptions of what you did or did not do can escalate to a calculated plan for murder. Lisa Berlanga was born on March 13, 1983, to parents Louise and Virginia in Midland, Texas. She would be raised in a loving home alongside her sister and two brothers until she moved out after enrolling and starting in classes at the University of Houston. In 2008, she registered to join the United States Coast Guard and flew to Cape May, New Jersey to complete boot camp training. Lisa would serve in cities all around the country, completing tasks as an information systems technician, such as electronic support detachment, and working as a navigation aide. She accumulated many awards for her achievements within her career, such as 2 Good Conduct Medals and a National Defense Service Medal. In 2011, she would attend military school in San Francisco, California, where she would meet Coast Guard Observation Specialist Anna Trubnikova. The duo would build a fast friendship, which quickly blossomed into love, and after a few months, the pair got engaged. In September of that year, Lisa was transferred to complete a tour of duty in Kodiak, Alaska, which is when she first met her new supervisor, 27-year-old Adrian Thomas Loya. Although he was her superior, Adrian and Lisa would often spend hours during the day talking about mutual interests, such as different TV shows and music, and the two became fast friends. Adrian was born in El Paso, Texas, on February 5, 1984. His parents had an on-again, off-again relationship, to the extent that when his mother was pregnant with him, his father didn't know, and he wouldn't meet Adrian until he was a few months old. Although the couple would attempt to make their relationship work by getting married and even having 2 more children, they would eventually call it quits and divorce soon afterwards. Growing up, Adrian was described as a shy child who didn't have many friends and preferred to keep to himself. The few childhood friends that he did have would later say that he often displayed behaviors that seemed to go from one extreme to the next, such as going from being quiet and timid one minute to being filled with anger and rage the next, especially with his interactions with his younger siblings. When he was in high school, his mother would relocate from the state of Texas with his siblings, whereas Adrian chose to remain in El Paso with his father. And after barely graduating from high school due to his low grades, Adrian would graduate and then in 2006 enrolled in the U.S. Coast Guard. During his first few years in the military, Adrian would maintain a low profile, acquire a few friends, and was considered overall a good employee. In 2008, when he was stationed in Yorktown, Virginia, he received a misdemeanor charge for public intoxication after he drove his car into a ditch. The charges would later be dropped after he paid fines and court fees totaling $96. In 2009, he would meet a woman on the internet and write an extremely detailed account of their relationship on an online forum. I've included the screenshots of the blog because I think that it's a really interesting read, and you can kind of get a better idea of Adrian's outlook on relationships and women before this incident came into play many years later. So you guys feel free to pause the video so that you can read it if you're interested. All right, back to the video. After being transferred to Kodiak, Alaska in 2011, Adrian continued to mainly keep to himself, with the exception of catching up with his childhood friend Jacob from time to time when they would Skype while playing games online. Once he met Lisa, he would tell Jacob that he was immediately attracted to her and felt she was his kindred spirit. He would confide in Jacob that although he initially was unaware that Lisa was engaged, he still felt connected to her and their friendship. On December 30th, 2011, Lisa and Anna would get married in New York, and in January of 2012, after Anna received orders to transfer, she relocated to Kodiak, Alaska, and moved in with Lisa. Anna would finally meet Adrian shortly after the move, when he and other members of him and Lisa's department decided to gather together to celebrate Lisa's nuptials and her return to Kodiak. Anna would say that Adrian was friendly, but only really showed an interest in talking to Lisa. She also stated that at one point during the night, she and Lisa were holding hands, and Adrian leans over to them and starts talking about how he doesn't believe in marriage, which she felt was odd because he knew they had just gotten married. A few weeks later, another incident ensued when Adrian came to pick up a package he had delivered to Lisa and Anna's apartment. Apparently, prior to Anna moving in, Adrian was having issues with the postal service, and Lisa had agreed to let him use her address to retrieve all of his mail. Normally, Lisa would bring him his mail to the office, but this particular package, a $450 sword that he purchased himself for his birthday, was too heavy for her to carry. Instead of coordinating a time with Lisa to retrieve the package, he showed up at her and Anna's home unannounced. Anna answered the door and was taken aback by Adrian being there, because not only was Lisa at work at the time, Adrian had popped up at their home accompanied by another man who was also in the Coast Guard. And during this time, her and Lisa had their mattress in the living room until they acquired furniture. So she felt uncomfortable with them being there and seeing that, since it was such an intimate space. The men would grab the package and leave, but afterwards, Anna called Lisa and complained about the encounter. Lisa and a male coworker would angrily confront Adrian while on base, and she would ask him, "What's your problem?" Fearing that she may bring the incident to his superiors, Adrian kept his distance from her. But within a few weeks, she would text to invite him to watch the Super Bowl, and he would decide to go. Afterwards, he said that he felt that things were going back to normal between the two. During Coast Guard morale events, he would interact with Lisa and Anna and discuss Star Wars being his favorite movie and his love of online games. Anna said that she noticed he always seemed to engage with Lisa more and felt he was romantically attracted to her wife. In late August of 2012, Anna went away to Barrow, Alaska for 3.5 weeks for reserve duty. She and Lisa would often maintain contact with each other on the phone or on the computer to video chat. The distance, however, was beginning to put a strain on their relationship, not only because they missed each other, but Anna had begun to notice that Lisa would be drunk sometimes, which concerned her. It seems that there may have been a cause for concern because while she was away, at some point one late evening, Lisa reached out to Adrian, invited him over, and asked him to bring some alcohol. He agreed and got to the couple's home around 2 a.m. The following information is based on Adrian's account of what happened next. He said that Lisa was obviously drunk because she wasn't acting anything like work Lisa. He had brought DVDs and a bottle of vodka, and the two made a drink before going to the couch to watch a DVD. After a while, Adrian got up to get some water, and when he returned to the living room, he said that she was staring at him. He would sit as far away from her as he could in the corner of the couch when he began to hear her laugh in what he considered a weird way, and then he heard her moaning. Out of his peripheral vision, he could see her moving, and when he looked over at her, she was massaging herself outside of her jeans in a neurotic manner. She then touched the side of his face and tried to lean in for what he assumed was a kiss, but he just stared back at her. He said she then went to the bathroom upset, and he began to think that he should leave, and was so upset to the point that he was shaking. However, he didn't leave, and when Lisa came back to the living room, she turned the TV off, then went to her bedroom and closed the door. He then put his shoes on, but heard a thud, so he went and knocked on the door to check on her, and after a few times, she eventually would respond to him and say that she was fine. So he told her he was leaving and to lock the door behind him. As he was walking away, she would open the door and stood smiling while gesturing for him to come to her and said, "Let's do this." She would come out the room and pull on his arm to lead him to the bedroom, which he didn't resist. And after stumbling, then regaining her composure, she put her hand on his, sat him down on the bed, and said, "Don't tell Anna, come sleep with me." At that moment, he thought to himself that she knew what she was doing and not that drunk, since she was specifically asking him to be discreet. He would later say that he also feared, because she was drunk and he wasn't, that if he did follow through with her request, she may try to accuse him of out of regret since she was married. He would tell her no and got up to leave when she asked him, "What the F is your problem, man?" and told him to just come to bed. To defuse the situation, he agreed to stay but sleep on the couch. She would eventually concede, so he went to the living room, laid down on the couch, and went to sleep. The next morning, around 6:30 a.m., she awoke and went to the bathroom. Then she came out to the living room and apologized to him that the couch was too small for him to comfortably sleep on. He said it was okay, and after a brief chat, he would leave. After Adrian left, he said that Lisa had reached out to him, profusely apologizing and begging him to not say anything to anyone. He would report being very distraught after the encounter and says he was experiencing severe panic attacks, anxiety, sleepless nights, depression, suicidal ideations, and had lost 25 pounds in the month following the incident. 5 months later, in February of 2013, he would pen a 22-page email to Lisa detailing all of the ways that her actions that night had negatively affected him. And when she failed to respond and instead ignored the message, he chose to up the ante and forwarded the email to Anna as well. Anna would later testify that Adrian had sent the document to her work email. One she only checked periodically, so she didn't see it until many weeks later. When she did see it, she skimmed a few lines, caught the gist of what it was about, and immediately contacted Lisa about the extremely long document. Lisa begged her not to read the email, stating that the details were unflattering, and then she came home on her lunch break and deleted it off of Anna's computer. Now extremely curious, Anna reached out to Adrian directly and provided him with her personal email address and asked if he could forward it there. Adrian agreed and told her he sent it because he felt she should know how her wife is. Adrian would continue to text Lisa late at night after this, telling her how wrong she was for what she did that night and how traumatic the experience was for him. I'm not sure if Anna was aware of the context of Adrian's messages, But eventually she would tell Lisa to make it clear to Adrian that the two were just friends. So Lisa demanded that he leave her and her spouse alone. Then she cut off all contact with him. Adrian then decided to inform his superiors about that night and accused Lisa of sexually assaulting him. But based off of the information he relayed and him denying any suicidal ideations when he was asked, his superiors said that they would remove him as Lisa's supervisor immediately, while also completing an investigation into the matter before addressing the situation further. He also was instructed not to have any contact with Lisa or Anna. Adrian would complete 9-hour-long therapy sessions following the incident, but would later write that therapy made him feel worse. A few months later, both parties would be transferred to a different base. The Trubnikovas were sent to Cape Cod, Massachusetts, and left Kodiak the summer of 2013, and in early fall of that same year, Adrian was sent to Chesapeake, Virginia. It was after this move that Adrian would receive the news that the investigation had reached completion in regards to the incident between him and Lisa. And to his dismay, the Coast Guard concluded that he had abused his superior rank in his encounter with Lisa and served both him and her a page 7, which is basically the equivalent in the U.S. Coast Guard of being written up. Since Adrian had been considering transferring to another department, now that he had this negative remark included in his personnel file, he believed this would prevent him from receiving consideration. Lisa and Anna were under the impression that the move would be a chance for them to start fresh and leave all the drama with Adrian behind them. But Adrian, on the other hand, seemed to be hung up on his resentment of Lisa. His high school friend Jacob would later testify in court that during this time, Adrian seemed obsessed with Lisa and talked about her and the situation all the time, to the point that he suggested that maybe Adrian needed to go back to seeing a therapist.
Be like, well, Lisa's this way. And I'd say, okay, well, how's work? But for him, work was Lisa. He just was so excited about having someone to watch TV with, to just hang out with.
Adrian allowed the belief that he had been sexually assaulted consume his thoughts, and that's when he began to pen a 250-page manifesto that he titled Loya Wars. In this extremely detailed outpouring of all of his thoughts and feelings, Adrian documented his daily turmoil of having to relive the moment Lisa attempted to him when she touched his arm. And it seemed that he was using random reasons to try and justify his anger towards her. For instance, one time he decided to drive to Texas to visit his dad and saw that his childhood dog was in poor health and would have to be put down. And somehow he blamed Lisa for this happening and said he hated her. He then began to write about wanting to kill her and fantasize various scenarios of this playing out. For months and even years, Adrian added to his murder book, and by 2014, he decided to make the last installment, titled Operation Purple Rebel, which had went from his original plan to just murder Lisa to a murder-suicide mission where he would kill Lisa and then have the police to kill him to fulfill his desire to die as suicide by a cop. In his manifesto, he would write things such as, I will die knowing that I did the right thing. Confront Lisa any way I can and terminate her. If I'm going to die, she shouldn't get away with this. She's just going to do it again. If I'm going to keep thinking it, I got to get this out the way by actually doing it. Make sure Lisa knows that it is I taking her life and why. This should be very interesting how it actually plays out. In Virginia, he accessed the Coast Guard database because he knew that the names and addresses of each member in the Coast Guard was stored there and found the new address of Lisa and Anna in Cape Cod. To confirm it was accurate, in October of 2014, Adrian began to prepare for his murder-suicide plot by driving 10 hours from his home in Chesapeake, Virginia, to their home in Cape Cod and placed their cameras outside of their apartment, then drove back. A week later, he retrieved the cameras and confirmed from the footage that it was indeed the Trubnikova's home. He then canvassed the neighborhood to locate entry points into the complex and also went online to view another apartment for rent within the same location so that he could gain knowledge of how the apartment was laid out. Throughout the entire process, he recorded his every move and would speak almost matter-of-factly about what he was planning to do. A few weeks before the murder, friends and relatives will recall that he had started to give away his personal possessions. Then, a few days before carrying out his murderous plot, he rigged his apartment by lathering the floor with gun oil, putting up props such as a large fake spider dangling from the ceiling and life-size cutouts of Han Solo and Princess Leia, which most later concluded was in an attempt to amuse the police he anticipated would be searching the place after he fulfilled his devious plan. He then gathered up his collection of guns, assault rifles, and ammo before making his way to the Quality Inn hotel he booked near the Trubnikova home. And on February 1st, 2015, Adrian left Chesapeake, Virginia, and began the 619-mile drive to Massachusetts. On February 3rd, 2015, he would check into his room and wait. The next day, on February 4th, Anna attended a military class that ended at 4 p.m. Then she went home and met up with Lisa, and the couple visited a car dealership since Lisa had totaled her car a month prior. Afterwards, they went to the mall and would get home around 9 p.m. Tired from the long day, they would go to their bedroom and lay in bed until they fell asleep. Shortly before 2 a.m. on February 5th, which was also the morning of his 31st birthday, Adrian Loya, dressed in black tactical gear, a mask, a GoPro strapped to his chest, armed himself with 4 guns, a knife, and 2 pairs of handcuffs, then drove to 11 Roundhouse Road to execute his plan. He then parked his Mazda at the front of the condo's complex and lit the car on fire to block the entrance. He set up a stereo outside of the car to a playlist titled Battle Music and blared songs such as the theme song from Star Wars and Batman, heavy metal, and symphony orchestra music. He went around planning several fake explosives around the complex, including a boombox rigged to a smoke grenade. He left an assault rifle outside in the snow for the cops to use on him, then used a shotgun and fired 2 shots into the front door of the condo, gaining entry to the residence. Even though it was pitch black inside, since he had already familiarized himself with the home's layout, he strategically headed straight to the master bedroom. And although the Trubnikova cat had pounced on him at what seemed an attempt to discourage Adrian from proceeding, he continued towards the room to finish the job that he came to do. Lisa would say something to Anna, claiming to have heard a noise, but Anna, still half asleep, said it probably was just one of the 2 cats that the couple had. A few moments later, the woman would hear heavy footsteps on the stairs, and within seconds, a man would burst into their bedroom door, shining a flashlight on them and yelling at them to separate and get off of the bed. The women, who were understandably confused, asked what was going on and assumed that he had the wrong house. He ignored their questions, yanked the covers off of them, then picked Anna's cell phone up and threw it out of reach. He would become agitated because within all of his years of planning, he always assumed that because of their training at the Coast Guard, that the woman wouldn't resist when given directives under duress, but he was wrong. Lisa continued to yell questions, while Anna remained what he would later describe as surprisingly calm. This threw his plan to have the women lay on their stomachs, handcuff their hands behind their backs, put headphones and a bag over Anna's head so she wouldn't hear or see anything, then stab Lisa to death out of the window. Instead, the women only separated after recognizing Adrian when he removed his mask and cocked his gun. Adrian would throw them handcuffs while saying, "You know what to do with them," but Anna only put it on her right wrist and hid her left hand. Lisa continued to defy his directives and continued to question why he was there. Adrian would yell at her in response, "See what you have done to me? Look what I've become because of you." She and Anna would apologize in an attempt to defuse the situation, but Adrian would tell them it was too late to turn back. He began pacing back and forth to their bedroom window, then activated and threw glow sticks at the women. As he continued to nervously check the door and windows, Anna took the opportunity to pull the mattress off of the bed towards her, and Lisa, who caught on to what she was doing, pushed her side of the bed further in Anna's direction, then jumped over to her side. The couple would attempt to pull the mattress fully over them to use as a shield, but because it was so heavy, they were only able to get it a quarter over them. Anna would notice that Lisa had her cell phone in her hand and threw it before Adrian turned around and said, "What do you think you're doing?" and tried to pull the mattress off of the women. Unable to do so, he fired one shot. Then a few seconds later, fired over a dozen times into the mattress in Lisa's direction. Lisa would be hit 11 times and was shot in the legs, chest, shoulder, back, and abdomen. Although he would later tell police that he felt bad about doing so because it wasn't his intention, he also shot Anna 4 times, which caused her lung to collapse, wounds to her left thigh, and shattered her right arm, which caused her to suffer renal damage and would later require 4 surgeries to repair. After they were shot, Anna said she looked at Lisa and could hear gushing from her body and heard her gurgling up blood. They said "I love you" to one another, and a few moments later, she heard Lisa give a deep exhale, which confirmed that she had died. Assuming she would be next, Anna sat and waited for Adrian to come back and kill her, but instead, she heard a faint voice say, "911, what is your emergency?" She then realized that Lisa was able to dial the police during the intrusion, and the operator was still on the line, trying to process the situation.
911, this line is 911.
There's a shooter. My wife and I are both shot.
Do you know who shot you?
Yes, his last name is Loya. He shot both of us, me and my wife.
What?
His last name is Loya.
Is he related to you?
No, he's from the Coast Guard.
He's in the Coast Guard?
Yes.
Ma'am. Okay, we got a report of a gunshot victim. 2 of them and a female on the phone is passing out. Unknown on the male. Last name is Lawyer.
Is there anything on the gun?
Negative. Just a name. And Lawyer, the one who shot you, where's he at?
I don't know. Why are you taking so long?
We're on our way there, ma'am. We're right down the street. There's a car fire there. We gotta move the car out of the way to get to you.
Please hurry up.
We're right down the street, ma'am. We're on the road right now.
Seriously.
The male that shot you, he's not in the house, is he?
I don't know.
All right, tell me about him. What does he look like?
Stop making me go.
Where's he from? Yeah, we're coming as fast as we can get there. Is he still in the house?
I don't know.
Ma'am, what's your last name? Can you spell it for me?
G-R-U-B-N-I. K-O-A. Please hurry.
And your first name, ma'am?
Anna.
Okay, Anna, we're right there. We're gonna be right there.
Can you please hurry?
Please. We're coming, all right?
Please not.
Yes, we are.
Please.
Unbeknownst to Anna, Adrian had left the residence and was walking around, staging more of his fake explosives when he spotted Officer MacDonald. He would shoot at Officer MacDonald 4 times, with 1 bullet piercing his spine. But instead of the officer returning fire on Adrian like he wanted, he retreated to safety and waited until medics arrived. Adrian would eventually give in and be arrested on the spot. After he was escorted into a police car, medics would finally reach Anna and Lisa, with at this point, 30-year-old Anna having been on the phone with 911 for over 50 minutes. 31-year-old Lisa would be declared dead, with her cause of death due to lacerations and perforations of the lungs and aorta of the heart due to gunshot wounds to the chest. At the precinct, Adrian was more than willing to speak with the police about what he did and was very forthcoming about how he felt that Lisa sexually assaulted him and how his mission had been to kill her. He would say, going to their house that night, there was no feeling. That's what creeps me out the most about myself, that I felt nothing. I was going to my death. Felt no fear about going to my death. No anxiety, no shaking, no butterflies. But that night at Lisa's house in September of 2012, that was the scariest moment ever. I was feeling all the terrifying sensations of just a woman trying to kiss me. He went on to say that he recorded everything to prove it wasn't a terrorist attack, but a very personal act. He would be charged with murder, attempted murder, home invasion, assault and battery on a police officer, burning a vehicle, and armed burglary, then sent to Bridgewater State Hospital, where he was placed on watch. He would be diagnosed as having major depressive disorder, but well enough to stand trial. Adrian would plead not guilty, and in August of 2017, 2.5 years after the calculated murder, the trial would begin. The prosecution had overwhelming evidence against Adrian since he was extremely thorough in documenting his planning, motives, and intentions to kill Lisa. The defense's strategy was to weigh in on the state of Adrian's mental health prior to and during the killings. They emphasized that Adrian really believed that he had been violated, although he admitted that Lisa never touched him inappropriately or tried to force herself on him. The defense attorney would have a forensic psychologist testify, reaffirming that Adrian had major depressive disorder, which was increased by delusional beliefs of being harassed and spied on, all with malicious intent, against him, which caused him to be mentally unstable and not criminally liable for what he'd done. A psychiatrist presented by the prosecution would also diagnose Adrian as suffering delusions, but believed he had Asperger's syndrome, a form of high-functioning autism. The defense would be caught off guard by this diagnosis and would request that a psychiatrist who specialized in autism be brought in to evaluate Adrian. The specialist would give testimony that Adrian wasn't delusional or autistic and seemed to have avoidant and borderline personality disorder, but was always aware that what he was doing was wrong and thus was criminally responsible for his actions. Officer MacDonald would also testify during the trial and speak of how he was ambushed by Adrian's bullets, with one piercing his spine, causing him to suffer permanent nerve damage, having to spend a month hospitalized, walking with a mobile aid and service dog, and forcing him to retire from the department after only serving 10 years. Anna will also take the stand and recall to the jury how Adrian burst into their home, the pain of being shot and watching her wife take her last breath, having nightmares, struggles with PTSD, which caused her to move several times, and also having to learn to live without Lisa. It would take a jury made up of 5 men and 7 women 3 days to deliberate, and on September 12, 2017, Adrian would be found guilty on multiple counts of possession of a large capacity feeding device, aggravated assault and battery, use of a firearm in the commission of a felony, armed assault to murder, armed home invasion, armed assault in a dwelling, armed kidnapping with serious bodily injury, 1 count of burglary and assault on an occupant, arson of a motor vehicle, possession of a hoax device, and assault and battery on a police officer. He was found not guilty of 1 count of armed assault with intent to murder Anna Trubnikova, since he always made mention that he had no intentions of harming Anna in his manifesto. He is currently serving his life sentence in Massachusetts Correctional Institution in Walpole, a maximum security prison. In February of 2020, he would appeal his conviction.
12475, Commonwealth versus Loya.
Theodore Reardon on behalf of the defendant, Adrian Loya. The first issue presented is whether the jury verdict slips in this case should have framed the issue for the jury as to whether or not the Commonwealth had proven its case beyond a reasonable doubt, instead of what happened here, where the jury was charged that does the jury find the defendant guilty or not guilty. Equating the failure to prove the case to not guilty is a false equivalency, because insufficient evidence of guilt is tantamount to saying the defendant is innocent.
Mr. Reardon, the guilty but insane that you propose, a number of states have it. Is it usually by statute, or has some of it arisen through common law like you're asking us to do?
So that's the second issue in the case, is that the jury should have heard the issue as being guilty but not criminally responsible. And the reason why that's significant in this case is this is an especially egregious set of facts. And it would, I think a juror would be hard-pressed to associate this defendant with the term not guilty. However, it is much more palatable for them to find the defendant is guilty but not criminally responsible.
Yeah,
basically saying that there was any error according to the laws that existed at the time of the trial, are you?
Correct, I'm not.
You're asking for us to change the law.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Ultimately, he would be denied a new trial. He would later say that since being prescribed Prozac, that he realized what he did was wrong, but still commits that he was assaulted, although he was not.
Mr. Loya, what do you say to the victim's family?
Very, very sorry.
This marks the end of this video. I appreciate you if you have made it this far. I hope if you are new to hearing about Adrian Loya and Lisa and Anna Trubnikova's case, I tried to get into as much detail as I possibly could. I tried to not leave anything that was relevant out of this story that I did. For those of you that's already familiar with the case, I hope that maybe I could have included some things that you weren't aware of. And I just want to say, you know, for every story that I do, I you know, my heart goes out to the victims, surviving and past, and the victims' families that, you know, still have to endure that situation and everything that happened. So again, I appreciate each and every one of you guys. I hope to see you at the next video. Oh, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. And I hope to see you at the next one. All right, I'll talk to you soon. Bye.